Yes, the Bible does believe in angels, teaches about angels. They're these strange, intermediate beings between God and man. They are, by nature, second level of being. God is a spirit being, Father, Son, and Spirit before the incarnation. Spirit being. Angels are sort of a mix. They are largely spirit beings, but on occasion appear in a human-like form, or at least in a visible, tangible, touchable form. They can appear and disappear, and that is throughout the whole history of angels. Sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you see them and then you do see them. You do not see them and then you do see them. The author of Hebrews, this side of the miraculous era of the New Testament, says you should be hospitable. For in being hospitable, some of you have entertained angels and were not even aware of it. Sat down and had a meal with you, did certain things with you, appeared on the scene for some reason known to God and the angels, sometimes not even known to us or recognizable. Have you ever seen an angel? I don't know. It's possible that you have. Have you ever benefited from the ministry of angels? No doubt that has been the case. Abraham, under the oak trees in the plains of Mamre, was met by the angel of the Lord, and that angel of the Lord is the Lord himself, second member of the Godhead, in a pre-incarnate appearance. And other angels were there with him. And Abraham, being hospitable, entertained them. He gave them biscuits and milk and honey, and they ate it. If he'd have known what he was doing, he'd have probably had angel food cake, don't you think? That would have been right. Now, the angels can participate in biological functions. They ate that food. They didn't say, oh, what are we going to do here? Here's a biscuit. You know, they didn't fake it. They could enter into bodily functions. Some of them fell one day and entered into marriage relationships, and God said, no more of that. And they're specially confined fallen angels, demons, because they violated their first estate. They crossed from angelhood into humanity. We'll talk about that later. They don't do it anymore because they don't want to be confined ahead of time. But there is a group of specially imprisoned fallen angels now because they acted too much like human beings. Fallen angels acted like fallen human beings. And God said, no more of that. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? We'll come on that later. Angels are spirit beings, but they're localized spirit beings. An angel is not omnipresent. An angel goes from one place to another. An angel is sent from heaven and come here. And in the process of doing that, as Gabriel tells Daniel, this was hard because I had gotten fights with other angels. The fallen angels on the way. Can't you see it? You know, all this kind of stuff going on. And we can't even see it's going on, but it's going on. There are angels with us now presently, just like the demonic world. Now, let's not be finding angels behind every bush, and certainly even less find demons behind every bush. As we read through the Bible, we live a very customary life, a usual life in the world in which we live. We're not trying to see angels in the marble. You know, you say, oh, there's a demon. I can say a demon's face. There are more demon faces in the marble auditorium than here. But if you look around, you can probably find some here. There's a misshapen cow right there. Do you see it? Don't you see the cow? Yeah. And let's find something over on the other side. There's a bat over here, a perfect bat coming at you over there. There's a whole series of them, actually. Well, about this time, I'll ask a question. Don't respond to this question publicly, at least. But every year, some people are at college who have dabbled in satanic interest of one way or another. If a recent convert, some people have done that. Some people have been on drugs in the past, and they have opened up their mind to out-of-body experiences. And there are a lot of demons out there who are quite willing to get involved in that with you. And you've come to salvation, And the problem is we always come at angels and a little later, next week, into Satan and demons. And if there was ever an interest in the occult, that still hangs on. We do damage to ourselves. And invariably come Halloween time, which is in fact a special night of the occult, the students who have had that background are troubled, literally troubled. We've had deans stay with them overnight, and they were frightened coming on this day where the demonic world does become more active. The satanic worship stuff is a Halloween practice. When I was growing up, Halloween was kind of a neutral, fun time. You just went around, did all sorts of things in the neighborhood that were harmless and a lot of fun, and the old folk set it up for us to be mischievous. You know, it was kind of nice. Night before Halloween was called moving night. Do you still have customs like that? And we moved all the furniture all over the place, in the whole neighborhood. It was every place. And you come out in the morning, you had somebody else's chairs on your porch, and your chairs were someplace else, and the kids were thinking, oh, wasn't that funny? Oh, we did it, didn't we? Well, the parents were watching out the windows, their kids having all this fun. You know, it was no big deal. Parents are usually smarter than children. But nowadays, you know, I don't even care for it anymore. There's so much that's satanic connected with it. We had decontextualized. It's been recontextualized to be what it is at the present time. And I hope we have no one of that background here. But if you do, run to your RA if you can't sleep that night. Do you think this really happens? Do you think I'm telling you a story here? It's really the truth. There are things that go bump in the night, folks. They're called demons. There is scary stuff that goes on out there. And all you have to do is watch what's on television. No, don't watch what's on television. You recognize October, they bring out all the junk horror films and all that kind of stuff. That's what happens. And people feed their mind on it and open up the door for all sorts of dangerous stuff. We Christians don't do that, do we? I hope not. Hope not. There are angels. There is that mysterious world of angels, some of whom are no doubt present in this very room. There are different categories of angels. We'll look at them. One of them is guardian angels, given in Hebrews to be angels who care for those who shall be the heirs of salvation. Yeah, the guardian angel concept is not some myth that's developed over the years. They're servants sent to minister to those who shall be heirs of salvation. Take care of you in those unsaved days. Protection until you come to faith in Jesus Christ. And it continues. Does God need angels? No, he's omnipotent, he's omnipresent, but he prefers to have angels. And Larry will give you a good section on this. They're in all the throughout the whole of the Bible, as he mentions in 34 of the books specifically. Spirit beings, so unlike God on page 90, they are limited by having some sort of angelic bodies, but they are not so limited as man is. We're really stuck in our bodies until we die. The angels come and go and assume body or visible form. Angels are localized. They are not omnipresent. They can't be here and there, as we have said already. Now, when did angels come into being? Before the creation of the universe. It seems just before, as God decides to create. And when he then created angels, he then called into being by the word of his power all the universe that we see. And in the book of Job, we have a description of that I particularly like. You can get involved in this morning. In Job chapter 38, the Lord speaks to Job and says, who is this who darkens counsel? The Lord was base, you understand, by words without knowledge. He says, where were you, in verse 4, when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determines its measurement? Surely you know. You talk like you know everything. Or who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? God is telling Job about original creation of the universe when there was nothing but God, and here angels, when all the sons of God, the angels, shouted for joy. When God created the universe, the angels shouted for joy. So this establishes that they were here before the universe, probably just before, when God, Father, Son, and Spirit went into creator mode and created all that we see by the word of their power. First, the angels in all of their organized array, and we'll talk about that directly. First, the angels, and then creation. And he tells us what the angels did when God created the heavens and the earth, the universe. They shouted for joy. All the sons of God shouted for joy, and there was singing. The morning stars sang, and the angels shouted for joy. I view it this way. Have any of you ever gone to 4th of July fireworks? Isn't it fun? We have great fireworks in town. It's wonderful down at the Mississippi. They shoot them off right over the river, and all the boats are gathered around, and you get a double dose of it because it's in the sky and reflected in the Mississippi. It's fun. It really is enjoyable. If you're here in July, don't miss it. There's a cheaper version at the fairgrounds, too. You can sit right under the fireworks, and I prefer that, and there's no traffic. But it's a good thing. But one of the things I always like at fireworks time is the response of the people. One of the funny things is when they shoot off the real boomer types, you know, boom, that shake, and all the cars start blowing their horns. Have you ever been to that? That's really fun. I like that. It's kind of amusing. Don't lock your car is the bottom line. But I like to listen to the crowds when they put up a really beautiful thing. Do you know what the crowds do? Ooh. And another one. Ooh. And another one. Oh, you know, and they're making all this same sound. Well, that's what the sons of God did. The angels did when God created the universe. I want you to do an imitation of what the angels would do when creation bursts on the scene. By the way, this is, you know, the Big Bang. I love that concept, the Big Bang. And now we've gone another step and say, oh, there must be intelligent design out there. I like that. Don't you like intelligent design? I know how to spell intelligent design. Do you? G-O-D. That's easy. Okay? And they're getting closer and closer. Science is backing them into a corner. You can't have eternal matter. They finally have admitted that. That's faith. And, oh, yeah, there is design in all that. Duh. Why shouldn't we have figured it by now? We should have. Okay, but here it is. They're singing for joy. And God says, by the word of his power, universe. And the angels went, oh, they'd have done better than that. A little more. Universe. Oh, now, shouted for joy, isn't it? Shouted for joy. Universe. That's better. That's better. And that's the way it had to be. Think of that. The angels, freshly created, creatures of God to do God's bidding, worshiping God. We see a special category of seraphim flying with 6 wings. Can you imagine that? That takes some coordination. And there he creates all, and they're just getting to know one another probably. They're not omniscient. And they're worshiping God, and then God, the Creator, said, we're going to make some more things. Here we go. Whoa! And they shouted for joy at creation when there was nothing, and all at once the enormous universe. I have a little piece of software on my computer called Sky, and it tracks the stars and the comets and the planets and all the rest of it. And you can have the whole universe on your screen and tilt it around and watch the circling planets around the... you almost feel like God. It is so neat. And there's a little button you can press for the stars to come out. Boom! And it is just full of stars. And if you put your cursor on one of them, they tell you exactly where it is and all the rest of it. Just an amazing thing. I can sit there forever playing God, tilting the universe, making it go faster, slower, focusing in on one thing and another. Here's this little planet called Earth going around. By the word of his power, he created, and the angels were there just before it probably. And they shouted for joy at this great creation that God brought into existence. So, they're here ahead of us. They're here ahead of the universe. They were witnesses to God's great creation. The great power of God manifested in a split second in what we would call the original Big Bang created by God when God created. And the universe was brought into existence. That had to be wonderful. And they experienced that. The angels that God created. One of the things Ryer will point out, and it is true, that angels are really big on organization. You get a real demonstration of this when after Lucifer fell, Moses was buried by God, but someplace there's a strange verse in Jude about Michael and Satan contending for the body of Moses. That's a very strange verse. God buried him, and now you see Michael, the angel so active in the Old Testament, and the devil, it seems like one's got one end of the body and one the other, and they're fighting over the body of Moses. You have no idea what that's about, except you get this little hint that when Jesus is transfigured in his earthly ministry, takes Peter, James, and John up on the Mount of Transfiguration, and he is seen to be there. Do you know who's there with him? Moses and Elijah and Jesus and Peter, James, and John. Now, I know how Elijah could be there. How could Elijah be there in his body? He never died. He's taken to heaven. I know how Jesus is there. He's here on earth. I know how Peter, James, and John are there. I understand that. But what's the story about Moses? Is this a man-like appearance of man? A manophany? I made that up. Yeah. Did he take on somebody, or was that, in fact, a result of this battle for the body of Moses, sort of an out-of-order resurrection? Well, it's not there. It's an out-of-order, I think, an out-of-order resurrection. Now, Michael had been given direction by God to go get the body, evidently. And Satan comes swooping in and said, no, you can't have that body. It's out of order. And now, Michael would not bring a railing accusation against Satan. You see, this is being used as an illustration of how we are to be with one another, to respect authority. Michael respected the authority of his once boss, who held the position of being the exalted cherub, the highest of angels, the sum of beauty and wisdom, as we'll find out. Angels understand authority. They like structure. And Michael would not violate organizational structure, even though the person at the top, the being at the top of, person's okay, person at the top of that organizational structure had sinned and fallen. He still represented that high structure of angelhood. That's how the apostles can say, be subject to the king. When Peter writes that, Nero's the king. He occupies a place of authority, and authority in itself is to be respected. Angels love authority. They love structure. They're organized and structured, and they follow specific patterns of behavior as to how they are to be. Even Michael would not say, look, Satan, Lucifer, you fell. I'm doing God's bidding. Let go. No. He goes to God, who is a higher authority than Lucifer was, instead of himself taking that place of authority, which would have been the same kind of sin that Lucifer did. The angels likewise. This one, we should. It is not politically or religiously correct to make reference to this today, but I will. Angels look down at the church and behold in the functioning of the church the order of God. And Paul will say that's one of the reasons women should have a head covering on in the meetings of the church. We've missed that verse in the 21st century, one way or another. Because of the angels, Paul will say, just in a passing way, because of the angels. And the whole concept of angelhood is that they love order. They are organized in that way. They are structured. They have specific responsibility. Highly organized type beings. God made them that way. Now let's look at how they are. How many angels are there? Well, nobody really knows. He says 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands. Now, if you do that, is anybody a good, quick mathematician? It says 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands. You want to figure that out? Some math kind of a beaver type person? Yeah, anyway. 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands. You got it? Anybody got it yet? Now, it's not meant to be an exact number. What is being said when he says there are 10,000 times 10,000s and thousands of angels is there are a lot of angels. That's what he's saying. But it gives you some idea. If you do the math, it gives you some idea. Boy, we are talking about really a lot of angels. When God created angels, he created a mass of them. How many? 101 million. That's a lot of angels. Yeah. And we're talking about millions of angels when all is said and done. God created that. Now, that being. Now, the word angel itself means what? Messenger. Messenger. A messenger, you get the idea of an angel being a servant of God as a messenger. And they are assigned other responsibilities. And we'll look at those particularly, not just to bring messages, but they surely bring messages to human beings. You see that scattered throughout the New Testament, Old Testament alike. In the New Testament, they have a very specific instruction. The angel manual, when it relates to talking to human beings, says this. The first thing you say when appearing to a human being is, fear not. It happens all over the place. Whenever an angel shows up, don't be afraid. Whoa, but look how bright you are. Why shouldn't I be afraid? You just showed up on the scene. Why? You startled me. And they're the concepts you have. When he talks to Zechariah or to Mary, Gabriel gets the same response by, whoa, who are you? They were trapped. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. If you get a visitor in your house and you open the door and he says, don't be afraid, that's a good hint. That might be an angel unaware. Don't be afraid. But they seem to have a dazzling look in those times. Sometimes they appear differently. They appear in a normal kind of a way. So these angels are organized. And the first angel we need to look at is the chief angel. In Ezekiel 28, and we'll get to this in detail later when we go into the Satan part of angels and Satan, Lucifer is the anointed cherub. He's the highest of all the angels. And God says of him, if you seal up the sum of beauty and wisdom, if you say what is beautiful and what is wise in a creature, put a line under it, that equals Lucifer. He's the highest of created beings. He is the chief angel, the anointed cherub. Cherubs, cherubims the particular responsibility of cherubim is the plural of cherub. The particular responsibility of cherubim is to occupy the access to God, the worship of God. That's where they seem to be placed. Excuse me. That'll probably happen a couple more times. Ezekiel tells us that he is the anointed cherub. He is in direct contact with God always. He is in the throne room of the universe. Oh, here comes two. Excuse me. One more time, probably. Right in the presence of God, the anointed cherub. He's the highest of all created beings. Of all the created angels, Lucifer is the sum total of wisdom. You will have descriptions of angels where a strong angel, and then you have angels and demons fighting one another, and Gabriel will say to Daniel, boy, it was hard getting here, but I fought through. One wins over the other. There seems to be variation of strength, even in the good angels, not only in the good angels, but also in the evil, because they get involved in battles, and they must have to cry for help for one or another to come in time of severe spiritual warfare that's going on. Kind of interesting, isn't it? And in the book of Revelation, you will read that a very strong angel came and did such and such. So there are variations as to authority structure, evidently, variations as to strength, how God created some angels. There is even in the creation of angels this concept, and this is a hard one to get hold of. There are holy angels, we expect to hear that, but there are also elect angels. And I don't expect to hear that. But so it is. And if you will ask the question, well, why did some of the angels sin and others did not? And you only get one shot of it as an angel. I would have to say that if the Bible states there are elect angels, chosen angels, that the ones that weren't elect angels are the ones in time that rebelled along with Satan. Now that's assumption based on the fact elect. Another thing you need to recognize with angels, once an angel sins, he's done. There's no recovery. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 2, in explaining how wonderful a situation we find ourselves in, chapters 1 and 2 talk about angels. Chapter 2 says this, that God did not take hold to help fallen angels. He took hold to help us. Isn't that interesting? Angels fell. There's no John 3:16 for any fallen angel. There's no salvation. It's an old hymn. We don't sing it anymore. Only sang it slightly when it was around. Holy, holy, holy is what the angels sing. And I expect to help them make the courts of heaven ring. But when I sing redemption story, angels fold their wings. For angels never had the joy that my salvation brings. That's the truth. Angels don't know what it is to be lost and saved. Some of them know what it is to be lost. They will never know what it is to be saved. God provides no salvation for fallen angels. He only provides eternal torment. Hell, Hades, is for Satan and his angels. Fallen man will accompany them there if they do not accept salvation in Christ. So we are especially blessed. Now that tells us something about that attribute that we looked at called God is free. He is not obliged to do anything. That he acts on our behalf is out of his freedom in manifesting grace to us. It should be abundantly clear that God did not have to save any one of us. He was not obliged to do that, just as he was not obliged to intervene in the fallen angels. For mankind, he chose to take hold and help in sending his Son. No such thing for angels. So there is a chief angel, a hierarchical structure in place, Lucifer. I'm not sure how that was restructured. We have two other named angels in the Bible, Gabriel, Michael, probably belong to that next category of angels, archangels, and you see them mentioned as that. There is a rulership structure in relationship to angels, and they are called that. The Lord Jesus says on one occasion, I could call over 12 legions. The swords come out. He said, oh, put that away. I could call over 12 legions of angels. Now he says over 12. There are at least 12 legions. There are no doubt more than that. A legion, do any of you military guys, girls like to study battles and warfare and all the rest of it? Anybody like those kind of things? It's only you and me so far. I love the revolutionary period of our country. I do a lot of studying and reading. I have little miniature soldiers, a miniature George Washington and Tarleton and Burgoyne and a few others. It's kind of fun. And they're all on my desk, and we have little battles periodically. It's just the way it is. I'm not sure why I went down that road. Somebody help me. What was I saying just before? Legions. Okay. Military. I have a sheet I printed out in breaking down all the different categories in warfare. At the smallest level, I have a Marine sergeant, retired Marine sergeant, lives across, and we get into these discussions. We watch Gettysburg together and all that kind of good stuff, And we were talking about the arrangements. And there are platoons and squads and regiments and brigades and armies. Every legion of angels has every kind of angel there is in it. There are varying kinds of angels with varying responsibilities. Every legion, that's the way a Roman legion was. You would have the infantry and the spearmen and the messengers and the supply lines and the cavalrymen. Every legion would be made up the same. It would be an independent army, the 7th Fleet, 6th Fleet, 5th, the 1st Army, 2nd Army, 3rd Army. And they have the chain of command. Very structured. We are, next month, going to have a new vice president at the college. This is an exciting thing to me. Mark Presson was an MAS student. He was dean of men for a couple of years when I was dean. Really great guy. Went on to get additional degrees and enlisted in the Air Force and worked his way up to be the man in the Air Force, a colonel in the Air Force, who was responsible for the whole health system of the Air Force. I think the number is 47,000 people worked for him. That's more people than we have in a mass. You realize that? And he administered all of the hospitals on all the Army bases, all the insurance of veterans from the beginning of the Air Force till now was his responsibility, and God's directed him in his retirement to come and help us. Isn't that wonderful? That's an exciting thing. Well, this chain of command, I was looking at all of that. The chain of command, the structure in a legion. And that's the word the Lord Jesus picks up to say this is where how the angels are. I could call more than 12 legions of angels to help me. Peter, put your sword away. Power is not the problem. 12 legions of angels just hovering about waiting for the command of Jesus to strike those people who were trying to arrest him. And he doesn't do that. But he does, in the saying of that, tell us, man, there are a ton of angels, and they're really organized into legions. So I have 12 of them. I think they're more than that, but 12 is a number in Scripture that talks about administration. 12 apostles, 12 tribes. And he's saying there is this angelic organization made up of myriads of angels arranged in this legion concept. Now, what are the legions like? We know these 4 categories. National angels. In Daniel chapter 10, Michael is identified as that kind of an angel. He's acting on behalf of the nation of Israel. There are national angels. If you look in the book of Ezekiel, which we will when we come to fallen angels, there's an angel behind every one of the powers of earthly powers, and they are addressed in Isaiah and in Ezekiel, the angel of this nation, the angel of this nation. And Lucifer is one of those who is greater than just of one nation. You remember, he will say to Jesus, I'll give you all the nations of the earth. They've been given to me. I'll give them to you if you just fall down and worship me. So there are angels assigned to nations, and there are fallen angels that Satan, in duplicating the work of God, assigns to nations. National angels, caring for the powers that be that are ordained of God. God, in some mysterious way, has his angels arranged so that they implement his actions in relationship to the nations. Satan is on the other side playing a chess game with God. And we see them colliding when Gabriel comes with his message for Daniel. That's a message of Babylon and Persia and Greece and Rome and the revived Roman Empire. We see these angels fallen in good clashing. National angels. Now we make that scene applicable for today. We are involved in activities that are national right now. God's purposes will be carried out. He will do that in a number of ways. He will do that through the instrumentality of his angels. Those angels will be fighting in opposition to the fallen angels, the demonic world. We are going to be exercising our responsibilities in relationship to the nations, however your conscience might take you. Some not to vote. In our day, most of you to vote in this coming election, one way or another. And God is working out his purposes in the doing of all this, including the angelic worlds, good and bad, including the human world, good and bad. His purposes are being worked out in some mysterious way. He's chosen to use angels, just as he's chosen to use us in our form of government to execute what his plan is, according to his sovereign purposes. And we don't even know he's doing that. That's going to be happening come election day. Whoever wins, it's God's man. You realize that. He's not in heaven saying, if 10 more Christians would have voted, it wouldn't have turned out this way. It's going to turn out just the way God wants, including my vote, and including, if my father were alive, his lack of vote, because he didn't think Christians should vote, because they might be voting for the person who wasn't God's man. My view is the votes are just what they're supposed to be according to God's purposes, including mine, and not including my father's. That's the way God works. And we go through life functioning that way. Well, the angels are doing that same sort of thing. There's a lot of that. I got to tell you, there's a lot of devilish stuff going on out there, even now, as God works out his particular purposes. There are national angels. Particularly important is a national angel assigned to the nation of Israel. Because when the tribulation comes, God is going to say to Lucifer, Satan, out of my heaven. That's not where Satan is now. He is in God's presence, accusing the brethren, like Job. but God will say, out of here at the middle of the tribulation. And Satan comes crashing down to his domain that he has ruled from heaven and here. And he comes down and goes after the nation of Israel. If I can't destroy the Messiah, I'll destroy the nation to whom the promises are made. And that will be just as good as destroying the Messiah. And in the tribulation there is particular attention to destroy the nation of Israel, as there has been since its inception. And God will prevail there once again. And he will use angels to do that. There are national angels that are given responsibility to the nation. There are guardian angels. I love this one. The passage for guardian angels, that should not be an explanation point. It should be a one. Is in Hebrews 1:14. That was a slip. It says this. He was talking about angels, and he says in Hebrews 1:14, are they not all ministering spirits, these angels, sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation? Guardian angels are the angels that are sent forth to minister to those who will come to faith particularly. There's a wonderful verse in Scripture that angels rejoice when a child comes to faith in Jesus Christ. They are observing that. And there's celebration in heaven. When you came to faith in Jesus Christ, your guardian angel was celebrating. Yay! I got him to salvation. I protected him. How did a guardian angel ever protect you? Do any of you have guardian angel stories? Where you think an angel intervened on your behalf? You'll be the first class that doesn't if you are. You got one? You almost fell off a roof. Several times? What were you doing on the roof? Working on them. You think an angel actually preserved you in a setting like that? Yeah. There's stories like Dr. Fish will tell you a story like that. He was shoveling his roof one winter. You wouldn't think anybody as smart as he is would do that, you know. There was a lot of ice and snow. Haven't you heard this story? This is a great story. So, and it accumulated, you know, and it was starting to fill up the gutters, and once that happens, it melts and it gets back under the shingles, and you have leaks inside. That's one of the tough things of a bad winter, where it rains and then sleets and then freezes and then snows. It gets all piled up like last winter. Well, he was up, his roof was doing that, so he was up on the roof shoveling away, and he slips, and he goes, ooh, right down, bump on his deck. Well, that wasn't too bad. You know what he did? He went back up. and guess what? The ice was still slippery. Now, the guy's a genius, but he's up on the ice, and this time he hit and he thought he was dead. He couldn't even breathe. Just, yeah. He did come to. He was sore for it. He didn't do that anymore, you know. But guardian angel kept him from doing it the third time, I hope. Something like that. There's another story. He used to ride a motorcycle. And you know, when you come to a red light in a motorcycle, what do you have to do when you come up? What do? You put your leg down. He forgot to do that. Oh. We'll stop there. They're guardian angels. They are sent of God to care for those who shall be the heirs of salvation. Now, the verse doesn't mean a lot to you now, but in 10 years it will mean. I was saying this to one of the other classes. In 10 years, there's going to be a whole different complexion if this group comes together. Most of you will be married. Most of you will have a little trail of kids behind you. And there is no way you can be 100% active in caring for your kids. It's a miracle of God that anybody gets to adulthood. And we have help. Are they not ministering spirits sent forth to minister, to serve those who shall be the heirs of salvation. We seldom think about angels assisting God in bringing us to salvation. But you see angels assisting throughout the Bible. They were there at the birth of Jesus. They were there in the temptation of Jesus. They were there in Gethsemane. They were involved in resurrection. They are appearing. They are helping the Lord himself accomplish what he had to do. If it would not be for angels, the Lord would have died in Gethsemane. God sends his angels to protect his son even. And he sends them to protect and care for all of us who are the heirs of salvation. I think one of the joys of heaven will be hearing the stories that each of our guardian angels has to tell about what he did on our behalf in ministering to those who shall be heirs of salvation. There are guardian angels. As you approach the throne, the cherubim are there. The cherub is involved in the throne room of heaven. Seraphim, the last of the categories that are spelled out, are seen in Isaiah 6. And they are involved particularly in worship. While the cherub protects the access to God, seraphim seem to be worshiping God. That is their design. They have 6 wings, and they have a favorite song. Do you know the song? Holy, holy, holy. It's in Isaiah 6. It's in Revelation 4 and 5. It's the favorite song of heaven, extolling the holiness of God. And you have these categories of angels making up a legion. Perhaps there are others. There are some subsets, the angels of the waters, the angels of the land, of the earth. But you have these spelled out specifically. They are organized, structured to go about serving God at his request. He does not need them. They are his messengers. They are appointed servants to carry out the activities that God would have in place. It seems like, from the book of Job, that they have daily organizational meetings to see what is the assignment for the day. In verse 6 of chapter 1, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. It looks like there are these days, by this description, where the angels gather together in heaven when the sons of God come for a staff meeting. And there are various responsibilities assigned. Satan has access to those meetings. And Satan raises this question. The Lord said to Satan, where do you come from? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth and walking back and forth on it. The Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? God institutes the book of Job. He's the one who initiates it. And at this gathering of all the sons of God, of the angels, as they come, there is a report time. What have you been doing, Satan? And Satan gives his answer. And then God says, I have another responsibility for you. Have you considered my prophet Job? My servant Job? And Satan says, I know about him. No wonder he's such a good guy. Look what you do to him, for him. And God says, well, I'll give you some latitude to do certain things. Satan said, he gets a tough time. He's going to deny you to your face. God says, okay. Let's see what you can do to him. Can't kill him. There's certain latitudes of action, but go for it. And Satan goes out. Just like all the others will go out and do their responsibilities. He even is controlling, God is controlling in these staff meetings what the fallen angels do. Isn't that an amazing thing? The Apostle Paul gets hammered by Satan. His thorn in the flesh is described as a messenger of Satan. Satan's trying to knock Paul down with his, whatever it was, physical malady, no doubt. Probably something to do with his eyes. It refers to something like that in Galatians. You would have plucked out your eyes if you could. He had that some kind of a disease like that. And Paul prayed 3 times that this messenger of Satan, and the Lord responds, no, I'm not going to take it away. I'm going to keep Satan on a leash so that you won't be proud and glorify yourself. It'll keep you humble. You'll have to trust me, rest in me. And Satan's the one doing this to Paul. Satan doesn't know it. But there is this time when all these angels in their hierarchy gather together and get assignments to do. And then they come back and report, good and bad. Satan, what have you been up to? Give your report. It'd be interesting to be in on one of those staff meetings. As God administers the universe and administers his angels and even administers, according to his purposes, the bad angels to bring glory to God.